time for a little question and answer afterwards, which I understand our speaker is looking forward to, enjoys. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Rabbi Cat Zavis. And Rabbi Cat is a passionate shaper of Jewish rituals and services that inspire and draw connections between the spiritual, personal, and political. She is a spiritual, social justice activist, attorney, and visionary leader with over 20 years' experience in empathic and people-centered leadership and collaboration. Cat is a sought-after facilitator and trainer in nonviolent communication, prophetic empathy, collaboration, and conflict resolution, with over 25 years' experience working with and helping people understand our shared needs and how to build beloved communities of belonging. As co-editor of Tikkun magazine, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, she has both written articles and helped shape the magazine. She's been executive director of the Network of Spiritual Progressives, trained over 1,000 people in prophetic and revolutionary love. Rabbi Cat resides in the Bay Area. In recent years, as you all know, many Zionists have begun to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. This is being done to blunt any criticism of the Israeli government, no matter what they do. Rabbi Cat will explore this phenomenon, including how it adversely impacts Jews as well as Palestinians, since actual anti-Semitism does exist but is not being properly addressed. And we are seeing a loss of free speech in the country, in California, and elsewhere. And Rabbi Cat will be talking about AB 715, which is a further threat to free speech here. She'll address other issues as well, such as the rise of anti-Palestinian racism, facing our Jewish trauma, weaponization of our trauma, and creating safety through solidarity. And as I said, we expect a lively conversation afterwards. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Rabbi Cat.
Thank you so much for having me. So, like a lot of good Jews, when I talk, I move. And I don't have a mic attached to my body, so if I'm moving while I'm talking, you can't hear me, please just let me know, because I won't remember that I've done that. Okay? So I have to talk close to the mic, yes? Yes. All right, this is a good tighten it. All right, we're good, I think. So I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for conversation. So I'm just going to encourage you to hold your questions until after I'm done. Write it down or whatever, but I'm happy to take your questions. And I also just want to say, I may say some things that are really challenging for you to hear or difficult. No, you might not like it. That's fine. Well, you know, we can engage in conversation after that. I'm just going to ask you to take some deep breaths. If you're noticing yourself getting, triggered, I'm sure that's such a common parlance now, you know what I'm saying when I say that. If you notice your blood pressure rising, you're not breathing as deeply, you want to scream at me, or you want to, whatever's going on, I'm just going to ask you to just take some deep breaths, feel your feet on the ground, place a hand on your heart if you need to just ground yourself so that you can still hear what I'm saying. And you might not be able to, you might not in that moment, and that's okay. Particularly for Jews, some of the things I'm going to be saying can be triggering to our historical trauma. And so you might not even, like intellectually, you might be like, well, I'd like to go there, but your body might be reacting. And I can say that's happened to me recently. I mean, it's not something that's like 10 years ago for me. I'm aware of it happening still today. So I just want us to learn to distinguish between the genetic the epigenetic trauma, perhaps it's getting stimulated within us, and our capacity to really think through things intellectually and emotionally and spiritually together. Okay, so do folks, can you give me a thumbs up if you're cool with giving that a try for me? Awesome, thank you. Okay, so the first thing I said I'd talk about was the conflation of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and the danger of that. So in order for me to talk about that, I have to first talk about what is anti-Semitism and what is anti-Zionism, at least as I'm going to explain it to you. So I'm going to start with what is anti-Semitism. And I would have had slides for you, but it's almost high holidays, so I'm a little busy. So, so I didn't get to do these in slides, so forgive me. And I want to acknowledge that what I'm saying to you is not only from my own words. There's plenty of brilliant thinkers who've been writing and speaking about this for well longer even than I've been alive. And one of them, who's actually younger than me, a brilliant woman, is Sarah Kirshner, who's actually going to be speaking at our high holidays. And so I just want to uplift her because a fair amount of what I'm saying is through my conversations with her and through things that she has written. So anti-Semitism is specifically European and Russian targeting of Jews with state repression, violence, exploitation, and extraction. That's the historical reality, manifestation, and definition of anti-Semitism. Now, today, defining anti-Semitism becomes difficult because Zionism has co-opted it. It has conflated what it means to be Jewish with what it means to be Zionist. So a former colleague of mine posted on Facebook that Judaism is Zionism. And if that's the case, then by extension, being Jewish means you're Zionist. And then it becomes really hard to define anti-Semitism, because then any criticism of Zionism becomes inherently a criticism of Jews and Judaism. But anti-Semitism existed long before Zionism and has nothing to do with the state of Israel or with Zionism. Anti-Semitism, there were other places besides in Europe, right? There were other places in the world where anti-Semitism didn't necessarily look like genocide or isolation per se. It maybe looked like discrimination, different laws and different rights, and in different moments there was coexistence, and also more subtle forms of exclusion. And in Iran, anti-Semitism was a little bit more virulent at times. But it's a European construct. And it was constructed, actually, by an anti-Semite, no surprise there, Jonathan Marr, who referred to Jewish people as Semites, and then came up with anti-Semitism, or anti-Semitic. And he was also one of the people who suggested that Jews go to Palestine to solve the, quote, Jewish question. So Jews going to Palestine was theoretically a solution to the Jewish question. What was the Jewish question? Why couldn't Jews just live in Europe? The Jewish question was that Europeans did not want Jews living in Europe because they were anti-Semitic. Not all of them, I don't want to paint a broad brush, but they wanted Jews to leave. So in the past decade alone, of course, we've seen a rise of anti-Semitic attacks by white nationalists in the United States in particular. So we witnessed the murder of 11 congregants at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018, synagogue shootings at the Chabad Synagogue in Poway, California in 2019, Nazi symbols at the January 6, 2021 US Capitol insurrection. We've seen anti-Semitic hate groups and rallies, desecration of cemeteries, and we've also seen the use of Jewish stereotypes and conspiracy theories, some of you are familiar with these, I'm sure, as part of racist ideologies. And visibly observant Jews have been attacked and harassed. So anti-Semitism exists, it's real. And at the same time, accusations of anti-Semitism are used nefariously to negate and silence criticism of the state of Israel. So differentiating between real anti-Semitism and false accusations of anti-Semitism is really important. Attacking Jewish individuals or communal spaces for being Jewish, or blaming the Jewish people as a whole for the actions of the Israeli government is anti-Semitic. But when legacy Jewish organizations defend Israel's genocide and ethnic cleansing, criticizing them is not anti-Semitic, because the criticism arises out of their defense of the nation state of Israel, and not because the organizations are Jewish per se. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So simply put, anti-Semitism is discrimination, targeting violence, and dehumanizing stereotypes directed at Jews because they are Jewish. It has absolutely nothing to do with the state of Israel. If a definition of anti-Semitism says anything about the state of Israel, it's not a legitimate definition of anti-Semitism. Because the state of Israel is just that. It's a nation state. It's a colonial state. It's an apartheid state. It's an ethno-national state. It happens to be Jewish. It happens to have a lot of Jews in it. But it's acting as a nation state. The fact that it says it's a Jewish state actually is part of what leads to more anti-Semitism. So I always think it's really important to say, Israel's not a Jewish state. I'm not going to concede that to Netanyahu and the other racists in Israel. It's a nation state. We don't say America's a Christian state. Sometimes we might want to, right? But like, naming it a Jewish state only empowers Zionists to conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, or with critiques of the nation state of Israel. So I continually say, Israel is not a Jewish state. If you're familiar with Jewish values, it's not in alignment with Jewish values. So criticism of Israel as a nation state is completely legitimate. And that includes definitions of anti-Semitism that include Israel. Criticizing and attacking and challenging those definitions is legitimate. Anti-Semitism existed before the nation-state of Israel and was defined and understood before the nation-state of Israel even existed. Again, any definition of anti-Semitism that tries to use Israel within it is not about anti-Semitism, it's about silencing criticism of the state of Israel. Got it? Is that clear?
Yes.
I need some water. Okay, so what's anti-Zionism? Anyone have a guess or a thought?
Anti-imperialism.
Anti-imperialism? Go ahead, anyone else? What is anti-Zionism is the question. I'm just asking.
Anti-racism.
Anti-racism.
Anti-settler colonialism.
Anti-settler colonialism. You're a friendly crowd. Anti-apartheid. Okay. So I'll just say it the way I'm going to share it. These are all things that I align with. Being an anti-Zionist, means opposing the political ideology of Zionism, which resulted in the expulsion of 750,000 indigenous Palestinians from their lands and homes. How many now are being displaced every day? I'm just going to start crying if I think about that for a moment. Like I really will start crying. I'm not joking. It means standing against the creation of a nation state with exclusive rights for Jews above others on the land. Anti-Semitism supports liberation and justice for the Palestinian people, including their right to return to their homes and land. Anti-Zionists believe in a future where all people live on the land in freedom, safety, and equality. So contrary to what Zionists want to say, which is, oh, if you're anti-Zionist, it means you want to kill all the Jews. That is not what anti-Zionism says. Anti-Zionism seeks equality in all the land for all the people. How that happens, what that looks like, what the outcome is, one state, two states, a confederation, that's not the question. Like, for right now, let's just stop the genocide and ethnic cleansing. That would be a place to start. But it's not inherently a belief in wiping people off the land, contrary to Zionism, which since its beginning was a belief in wiping people off the land. You can't have a Jewish nation state on Arab land, on Palestinian land, without getting rid of the indigenous people of that land. So what's also really interesting is that Zionism itself embraces many anti-Semitic concepts and advances them. So a couple examples. Zionism suggests that Jews require a supremacist nation state to answer the real question of Jewish safety. Right? Zionist requires a nation state, Israel, that theoretically is supposed to be a state to make Jews safe because they can't be safe anywhere else in the world. That is anti-Semitic. I feel perfectly safe in the United States. And I want to feel safe in the United States, or in France, or in Germany, or in Argentina. So the idea that Jews have to live in isolation and separate is an anti-Semitic notion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The idea that we have to live separate from other people to be safe is exactly what the anti-Zionists were saying. What the Zionists were saying. Why the answer to the Jewish question was you have to go live somewhere else to be safe. Anti-Semites have always, particularly in Europe and Russia, isolated Jewish people geographically and as a community. Zionism posits, once again, that Jewish people belong together in isolation from the rest of the world and the rest of the region in which Palestinian Jews and Southwest Asian and North African Jews, some of you may have heard the term Swana, have lived in diaspora and across that region. So it's taken Jews that have lived in diaspora in various places in the Middle East and around the world and said, you have to come here to be safe and live here. That is furthering anti-Semitic notions. Another example is that they blamed and shamed Jews in Europe for the genocide against them. The narrative that there wasn't resistance, that we didn't fight back, isn't a true narrative. There was resistance, and there were allies. But Zionism wants to erase those histories, particularly the histories of coexistence, because it's a threat to their narrative. In other words, Jews have to be separate and isolated. We don't really have allies. That's a lie. That's not true. And the more we believe that, the more we're going to feel we have to be isolated, which is furthering the anti-Semitic anti-Semitic desire to isolate us. And then it uses that fear that we didn't have allies, that we were alone, to justify its genocide today. And it weaponizes that. And I'm sure you're all familiar, we've all seen examples of the way that our fear is being mobilized and weaponized to carry out this genocide. Zionism and the nation state of Israel actually don't make Jews safe, in Israel or anywhere in the world. The biggest danger to the largest number of Jews is Jewish people living in Israel. Why? Because you can't maintain a colonial state and not expect resistance. And sadly, particularly if you're carrying out such a violent oppression that we're seeing today, of course there's going to be resistance. And it's not going to be nonviolent eventually. Particularly when all the nonviolent efforts are crushed again and again and again. BDS, somehow that became violent resistance by some people. Right? The Gaza Freedom March, I was there at the time, nonviolent march. They were slaughtering people. And Israel has intentionally engaged in military actions that make Jews safe in other places in the world as well. In the 1950s, Mossad bombed and attacked Jewish communities in Iraq to drive Iraqi Jews to move to Israel. Thousands of Jews in Argentina were arrested, imprisoned, and often disappeared, subjected to torture and execution by the military junta, whose weapons were supplied by Israel. So I always like to say, Israel is doing empire. Israel's an empire. It's doing empire. And it, sadly, is doing it really well. And I don't mean that in a positive way at all. It's doing empire. Just if you think about United States history and empire, we've done empire well. We've slaughtered people around the world. We've genocided people on this land. It's not a good thing, but that is what Israel's doing. It's doing empire. And we can talk about, like, to the extent that, like, Israel's the puppet of the Western imperialist world, and to which extent they're pulling the strings of the Western imperialist world. I think it can, like, be both and, but the Jewish role in history has been the middleman to be the face of imperialism and oppression in the world. And Israel's playing that role really well. I have questions about who's pulling the strings right now. I'm not sure. It seems to be both and. But Israel's empire, that's what it's doing. And it's horrifying to witness, to see it live streamed on our phone all day long. It's horrific. I mean, imagine living at the time of the genocide of Native Americans and being able to actually watch it live streamed on your phone. That's what we're witnessing. So Jews belong and should be safe anywhere and everywhere in the world, as should all peoples, including Palestinians. Real safety does not come from guns and checkpoints and walls and a police state. It's built through forging solidarity with everyone fighting for a more liberated world. Okay, so why is it dangerous to conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, and why we need to fight it? At a time when white supremacists and white nationalists take advantage of this moment to sow confusion and promote anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism, misstating what anti-Semitism is harms all of our work for justice and endangers all of our communities. Fighting anti-Semitism is part of the anti-racist struggle, as is anti-Zionism. Opposition to the political movement of Zionism and or the policies of Israel is no different from criticism of any other political ideology or policies of any other nation state, such as the settled colonialism, imperialism, and white supremacy at the foundation of our own country here in the United States.
Here, here.
But the Israeli government, US government, and anti-Palestinian organizations run concerted campaigns to redefine and misstate the meaning of anti-Semitism, aiming to falsely conflate it with criticisms of Israel or Zionism. They do this so the Israeli government can avoid accountability for its policies and actions that violate Palestinian human rights. Supporters of Palestinian rights are losing their jobs. They're being doxxed and harassed online. They're being attacked physically, being kicked out of schools, facing congressional censure for trying to save lives. And some, as we have witnessed, are being kidnapped off our streets and put in immigration detention centers. Our universities are being attacked and put in conservatorship and under the control of the US government. And all of this is because they are conflating criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. And when our rights, when we start losing our rights in the name of the state of Israel, the jump to it's because of the Jews is not a far leap for anti-Semites. And that's the danger. That's not the primary danger, because of course the primary danger is the genocide and ethnic cleansing. So I don't want to undermine that. But as Jews, to believe that the power of the state is going to protect us, it's never turned out well. So this all serves the interests of Zionists and Israel. And I already talked about referring to Israel as a Jewish state. The agenda of white nationalists, war profiteers, and anti-Palestinian organizations has absolutely nothing to do with protecting Jewish people. Do not be fooled. Nothing. and everything to do with harming intersectional movements for justice. Anti-Zionism, and someone said this when I asked what it was, is central to anti-racism. It's central to anti-colonialism. It's central to anti-apartheid. And we need to reclaim it away from the way that Zionists misuse it, and in doing so separate it from our natural allies, which are any and all people who've experienced genocide, ethnic cleansing, persecution because of their ethnicity and or race. We can't give them anti-Semitism. We have to define it. It's part of our struggle against racism, apartheid, and colonialism. How many people here are familiar with Project Esther? Okay, so when you leave here, go look it up. I am going to talk about it. When you leave here, though, go look it up. Okay, so to really understand the strategy at play and the conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, and the conflation of solidarity with Palestinians with anti-Semitism, we have to understand a bit about Project Esther. So Project Esther was created by the same people who created Project 2025. Familiar with that, right? Right, got your ears perked up. The Heritage Foundation. It's billed as a strategy to protect Jews from anti-Semitism. Who created it? Christian nationalists! Such good friends of the Jews. 11 of the 12 groups were evangelical Christian organizations and groups promoting American military superiority. Only one of the 12 groups was Jewish, and it was a pro-Trump Orthodox fringe group, unrepresentative of the American Jewish community, even as diverse and as disagreed as we are with one another. Project Esther is theoretically a blueprint to counter anti-Semitism in the United States. It attempts to convince Jews that our safety will come from colluding with state power. Again, Jews have never found safety in state power. When we've tried to align ourselves with dominant power, what happens? They turn against us really quickly. This is all a setup. So a summary of Project Esther reads as follows. America's virulently anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and anti-American pro-Palestinian movement, this is from their website, is part of a global Hamas support network that is trying to compel the US government to abandon its long-standing support for Israel. Supported by activists and funders dedicated to the destruction of capitalism and democracy, the Hamas support network benefits from the support and training of America's overseas enemies and seeks to achieve its goals by taking advantage of our open society, corrupting our education system, we'll get to AB 715 in a bit, leveraging the American media, because that's been so powerful critiquing the genocide. That was my footnote. Co-opting the federal government and relying on the American Jewish community's complacency. The National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism intends to enlist all willing and able partners in a coordinated effort to combat the scourge of anti-Semitism in the United States. Okay, if anti-Semitism is in fact on the rise, which is questionable, because when the ADL says that it's on the rise, they're counting within those documentations of it being on the rise, criticism of the state of Israel. So we have to tease that out. But let's say for a moment that anti-Semitism is on the rise. Who's committing those acts? Is it Palestinian solidarity movement? No. Is it anti-racist movements? It's white nationalists, right? So they include 4 strategies. And as I name them, you can think in your mind like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I'm familiar with that. I'm seeing that unfold. So the first one of them is crush dissent and campus protest. These are literally their strategies. I'm not making this up. Suppress protest and free speech, target faculty and staff, destroy student groups, and militarize campuses. Escalate public fear. Attempt to escalate mass fear of anti-Semitic violence. It's everywhere. Make advocates, writers, and thinkers afraid for their jobs, visas, and degrees. Now, I'm like nobody. Like, really, I'm like, and I left the country to go to Australia to actually lead anti-Zionist services. It was blessed. And I really was like, should I get a burner phone? They might, I'm like nobody. But they put that fear in me. They ended up not doing anything, so that was good. Defund, defame, deport. Cut off funds for nonprofits and charitable organizations. This is actually happening. And falsely accuse individuals and institutions. And get this one, immigration and visa-based retaliation. I don't know if she's trying to get in, but somebody was at the window looking in. Silence anyone who speaks out. Censor pro-Palestinian social media posts. Punish and criminalize advocacy. Doxing and reputation smearing. And silencing academics. Look it up. Project Esther.
They're doing a good job.
They're doing a very good job. And most of you had no idea what it was. Yeah, exactly. Project Esther's strategy for mobilizing fear to crush the Palestinian solidarity movement, this is really important, is a blueprint for how to crack down on other movements. You said that a second ago, right? It is a blueprint for what they're going to do to all of our other movements, our immigration rights movements, our civil rights movements, our queer and trans rights movements, our racial justice movements, our workers' rights movements, etc., etc. And we're watching this, right? The National Guard in cities throughout the country, and where are they placing them most? Cities run by black and brown mayors with large black and brown populations. And the Supreme Court just okayed it.
Right.
The authoritarian regime in Israel is coming home to the United States. And I don't know if you know about this, but they have trained police forces in the United States.
Oh, I believe it.
The architects of this is a quote from Barry Trachtenberg, a Reuben Presidential Chair of Jewish History at Wake Forest University. The architects, a quote, the architects of Project Esther aren't interested in fighting anti-Semitism, even in this moment of rising white nationalism. Instead, they're building a machine to crush dissent by any means necessary. The State Department plans to deport pro-Hamas students relying on a 1952 law that targeted Jews. So we must not be fooled into believing that the US government, run by white nationalists and Christian Zionists, has any real interest in protecting Jews or any other marginalized group in our society, or any group mobilizing for a true liberated, free society for all people. And like I just said, horrifyingly, the US Supreme Court just green-lighted ISIS snatching of brown and black people off the street without even reasonable suspicion. So it's playing out on our streets today. And one thing we know, when they come for others, they come for us. So let me be clear. We shouldn't only care about this because it's going to impact Jews. We should care about it because kidnapping people off the streets is immoral and fascist. Full stop.
Yes.
Reading it like makes me want to just cry and scream at the same time. It's really horrifying. Sorry. So an example of a local bill to crush discussion of Palestinian lives and experience is AB 715 that's currently in the California Senate. So this bill is an outgrowth of the California Ethnic Studies curriculum. And our Jewish community, sadly, has lobbied hard to keep the important narrative of Palestinian Americans and other Arab Americans out of California classrooms. to the extent of even trying to, in the San Francisco school districts, to not allow the teaching of Arabic. I kid you not. While pushing Jewish narratives that openly or subtly equate all criticisms of the state of Israel and Zionism with anti-Semitism. And one of the main backers of this bill is the Jewish Community Relations Council that claims to speak on behalf of all Jews. The ethnic study curriculum work seeks to make the voices of racial and ethnic minorities in California part of the stories that are told in our classrooms. Classrooms filled with children whose heritage and identities are African American, Latinx, American Indian, Asian Pacific Islander, South Asian, East Asian, Palestinian, other Arabic heritage, and many, many other identities. The ethnic study curriculum aims to add many voices to those of white experience, which serve as the dominant narrative in a state where about 80% of public school students are not white. Some number of those non-white students are also Jewish. And we also know that since 9/11 in the US, Muslims and Arab Americans have experienced massively increased discrimination, hate, and stereotyping, not only by individuals, but also by the government. So we need to be really careful not to see everything that happens in the world through a distorted lens that is only or primarily concerned with Jewish safety. The ethnic studies curriculum isn't about us. It's about living in a diverse state where many people's stories need to be told and shared, including Palestinians. And I was testifying, I went down to lobby with CARE, and I was testifying and speaking at a press conference, and I was thinking about it on the way down, and I thought, I'd love to do a skit, if I was a brilliant skit person, like Saturday Night Live or something about this. Because I'm imagining the classroom where AB 715 passes and you can't talk about you can't talk about Palestinian reality, period, basically. But you can apparently talk about Native American reality. So I'm imagining the classroom, which is 80% students that are not white, right? And I imagine somebody raises a question about Native American history, and then someone else goes, oh yeah, that's like my family in Palestine, that's exactly what happened to me. What does the teacher do in that moment? Sorry, we can't talk about that. There's this bill that doesn't let us talk, which would have been the best thing this teacher could actually do. It could be a lesson in the craziness of legislation. But it's nuts. Decades ago, Jewish advocates succeeded in including Jewish narratives, especially about the Holocaust, of course, in California's public school curriculum. Our voice and our history is there. We're already protected in the school system. We don't need a special bill. We understand that as Jews, we don't get to tell or edit the stories, or I should say we should understand, of Palestinians or other Arab Americans. They get to tell their own stories, just as we do. And sadly and truthfully, thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinians have stories of horror to tell, which includes acts of violence and humiliation, genocide, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and occupation by people in Israeli police and army uniforms, the vast majority of whom are Jews. So AB 715 purports to be legislation to protect Jewish students from an anti-Semitic learning environment in California public schools. Sounds okay. But so there's a new bill now, and honestly I didn't read it, but the definition last week when we successfully stopped it in its tracks, but now it's back, and I have, there's a handout about it, so, but my understanding is it's still really bad. Sets up conditions that will prevent Palestinian narratives from being shared and taught. And what it also does is it sets up, and again, I'm not sure about the new bill, it sets up I'll call it an anti-Semitic czar, that's not the title they give it, of course, but director or something like that. Only about anti-Semitism. Not an anti-racist person who's going to address all the anti-racism that comes up in school. So again, it's prioritizing Jewish trauma, Jewish stories at the expense and cost of other people's truths and stories. That also is really bad for Jews, right? Right, that just feeds into anti-Semitism.
You bet.
So it's, I mean, again, that's the second level badness of it. The first level badness of it is silencing voices of Palestinians and Arabs and others in our schools is bad and the worst. But then blaming it on Jews, making it the fault of Jews that that's happening because poor Jews need to be protected because they're so fragile, is really bad for Jews. So repression of political dissent regarding US involvement in the genocidal assault of Palestinians is not in the best interest of Jews and has absolutely nothing to do with Jewish safety. And to suggest it does actually threatens Jews because it takes away civil liberties and civil rights in our name. And rest assured, there are Christian Zionists and white Christian nationalists blaming on us now. This is all a setup. Jewish tradition teaches us to pursue life, to treat all people with dignity and to embrace principled disagreement, to stand up for human rights, to see the divine in all. This is an abhorrent twist of Jewish history and of what Judaism is. Silencing dissent, crushing free speech, taking over universities in the name of protecting Jews is itself anti-Semitic. Capitalizing and weaponizing Jewish fear to justify oppressive policies does not fight anti-Semitism. It distorts its meaning and undermines the very democratic structures that protect us all. And it is alarming that some of the same political actors who now claim to champion Jewish safety have also defended Nazi sympathizers, promoted anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and sought to dismantle civil rights protections. These are not our friends. So I'm going to encourage you to call your legislators every day this week, today and tomorrow, really basically tomorrow, and pro tem McGuire, to express and make it explicit, if you're Jewish, that you're doing it as a Jew. It's really important. So finally, in closing, I'm just going to say, as a rabbi, because nothing I've said is particularly inherently rabbinic, if you will, it's really important to me to reclaim Judaism from Zionism. Because if we fail to do so, we'll lose Judaism in the process.
Yes.
And I love Judaism. And that is not my primary reason for opposing Zionism and working to grow Judaism beyond Zionism, but it is one reason. Judaism is truly a beautiful religion with rituals, practices, and traditions that are thousands of years old, that have served our people well. Zionism is only 100 years old. There have been Jewish anti-Zionists as long as there has been Zionism. Building a Judaism beyond Zionism means focusing on the beauty and power of our religion and practices and engaging with them here in the US and throughout the world. Jews have lived and thrived throughout the world. You cannot be anti-fascist, anti-colonial, anti-racist without being anti-Zionist. And wherever there is Zionism, people are going to miss other forms of racism, genocide, ethnic cleansing, fascism, and authoritarianism. And they're going to cloud the waters in very dangerous ways. And to put it bluntly, if you're not anti-Zionist, you ultimately are not going to be able to stand firmly against anti-Semitism. Because Zionism has always found allyship with the people and organizations who actually hate Jews, who actually have acted to commit genocide, persecution, and targeting of us. Our liberation is bound up with the liberation of all people. We may stand firm in our values, or we must stand firm in our values. Protect democracy, defend the vulnerable, build a society where no community is used as a political pawn. Because we are only safe when everyone is safe. We are all one, and we are all part of the divine wholeness of the universe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Cat, for that very informative and very passionate presentation. Rick, do you want to come up here now? We're going to, before we get to QA, which will be very soon, I'm going to give you some information about action you can take regarding AB 715.
Well, just want to totally agree with what Kat was saying there. And if anybody's curious about this AB 715 and wants to learn more, there are flyers at the back, which is the press release that was issued today by the California Coalition to Defend Public Education. And this legislation in Sacramento would apply to all K through 12 schools in the state, public and private. And it would effectively make impossible teaching about Palestine. So it's really important for the future. And I was really, I was struck by one thing Kat said when she said that in San Francisco the Zionists are trying to make it impossible to teach Arabic. Because just today I was reading a really good book, Einstein on Israel and Zionism, which is a collection of his writings and quotes and interviews and letters. And Albert Einstein opposed a Jewish state. He was in favor of a safe homeland for Jews, but it was going to be on absolute parity, equality between the Arabs and the immigrant Jews. And Albert Einstein said all Jewish students in Palestine should learn Arabic. That's what Albert Einstein said. So just the contrast is very striking between the one of the greatest scientists of all time. So I think we only have one portable microphone. I think we're going to use that. Marvar, can you pass out the microphone to people?
Sure.
And we'll set up the one here that's stationary, right? Oh, okay. Well, I think you're going to post it. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. She'll answer. Okay. Then that's fine.
You do a much better job. So Rick's going to hook this one up from here to you.
Okay, got it.
So be thinking of your questions. Well, you're going to be first.
I don't have a question for myself. Well, I do, but probably don't want to. You want? I got it. I'm good. We got one here first.
And be sure to speak right into the mic. It helps a lot.
Thank you, Rabbi, for a very powerful presentation. I have, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the term Semite, because Semite is not exclusive to Jews. It is to the Jews who lived in the Levant region. Palestinians are Semite, Lebanese, Iraqis, and it seemed that this term was hijacked to be made exclusive for Jewish people. I am a Semite, I'm Palestinian, and as you know, most of the people in power in Israel are not Semitic Jews. They are the people who came from East Europe or West Europe, and they treat the Semitic Jews not at the same level. So if you can talk to us a little bit how the word Semitic now is being convoluted. And as you know, Ancestry, I'm a scientist myself. I work with DNA. Ancestry and 23andMe are all banned in Israel. You cannot, because most of the people are not Semitic, most of the Jewish people. So maybe you can just a little bit give us how this was taken
So, yeah, so you kind of said it, right? So it was part of, I think, the anti-Semitic movement to name Jews as Semites and separate them.
Can't hear you. Can't hear
You can't
you.
hear me?
That mic is not as good.
Not a good mic.
Okay, so I'll just come and get the mic. It's all right. You can take this. I don't care. I'm happy to move around. As I said, I move around anyway. Yeah, I mean, it was a intentional ploy, I think, right, to separate Jews from their allyship with other Semites who weren't Jewish, because Muslims and Christian and Jews, Palestinian Muslim Christian and Jews is what I'm trying to say, lived together for hundreds of years, and so it's just a racist ideology. Right. So I often say anti-Jewish hatred instead of anti-Semitism to try to make that distinction. So thank you for reminding me that I could have done that here today and just said I'm using this term in place of this term, because otherwise, because really anti-Semitism disconnects us from our solidarity with other Semites, if we call it anti-Semitism, right? And then it also does the other thing of like raising up somehow anti-Jewish hatred above hatred of other Semites, let's say. Does that make sense? Like Islamophobia or anti-Arab hatred or anti-Palestinian hatred. Oh, which on September 28th, in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and our website maybe is Beit-Tikkun, BEYTTIKKUN.org. I'm having a presentation online by the Institute for Understanding Anti-Palestinian Racism. And they're really great, and they distinguish between anti-Arab racism and anti-Palestinian racism. It's going to be a great presentation, and of course our high holidays are going to be great too. So you can go there and learn more. So I'm going to go there just first.
Do you want to give the mic?
Oh, you're going to help distribute
No,
the
no.
mic? Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yes. I feel like all these people here are supporters, or many of us. Oh, many of the people here are very supportive of what you're talking about. It would be really good if you could give us, or if somebody could give us, the number and name of the state rep that we should call. We can go online and get it. I understand that somebody just told me that. But if you want to call to action, help us. Help us to be active. Because I think the response would be enormous if we had that information on hand.
You mean for the bill?
Yes,
Yeah, you mean for the bill.
to argue against.
Yeah, I did not have time to get that information for you today, but maybe somebody here right now could
Go
do that.
online.
Put it in the back.
That's what we told you. Go online.
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
You can go online.
Let us know.
I know.
So anybody that has a
Thank you.
smartphone, you can do that right now. And then you can share it with us. Yeah? Okay, a question?
Thank you for that.
Hi. I picked up,
Oh, there, thank you. I want to see who's speaking.
I picked up this Voices for Justice in Palestine on the table about that there was no rape on October 7th and that the Israelis destroyed the Israeli homes. Do you agree with that, and if so, why?
Oh, sorry.
So there's been a lot of challenge to the stories of, I want to be clear about this, about the fact that rape was an intentional tool, it's intentional crime used during October 7th, and that has been largely debunked. That's not to say that people weren't raped, but there's serious questions about who and how many. And so I do believe that. I've done a lot of research and read a lot of things about it. So I think that doesn't mean no one was raped, because in crimes attacking people, women often get raped. And whether I believe that or not has nothing to do with my categorical critique or criticism of what happened on October 7th. It doesn't matter if they raped it. It wasn't okay to kidnap and kill civilians, in my opinion, because I don't believe in violence as a tool for liberation, or really for anything. And then the other question was about Israel bombing the homes. There's actually some evidence that that is true as well. So if you want to learn more about that, I encourage you to go to Electronic Intifada, and they have a lot of reporting about that. And I think, what's the other, Dropbox News probably has reported on that. And I at least encourage you to look, and you can draw your own conclusions. But condoning what happened on October 7th, I've no, obviously I condone what happened on October 7th. It's not okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi, for a wonderful presentation. I'm curious to know, and if you know, what your peers in California, rabbis throughout California, do they share your viewpoint, or is it kind of 50-50? Not even close? Okay, you're one of the unique and better ones.
Yeah, there's another rabbi in the room, so, but that person may or may not decide to disclose themselves, and I will not do that. No, it is, well, I'm one of a few rabbis that explicitly say I'm anti-Zionist, and that was a hard journey. Not so much believing in being anti-Zionist, but coming out, if you will, as a rabbinic leader. There's, in California, there's probably a handful of us. There's probably a handful of us, I said. Probably a handful of us. And then there's a larger group that run the gamut from like progressive Zionists to liberal Zionists. And what that means to them, I'm not clear, honestly. I don't know how to hold that in this historical moment. Maybe in a different historical moment that would have been easier for me to hold. But in this historical moment, I'm not sure how to I was going to say something, I was going to use a metaphor I'm definitely not using. I'm not sure how to hold that. So no, it's very rare.
We're going to have a speaker in December who's another rabbi named David Cooper. And you'll get another perspective from another rabbi.
Yeah. There and then there. Okay.
Just very quickly.
I'm going to hand you the mic because I know it's hard for people to hear if there's not a mic.
I was very upset with this and wrote a posting on Facebook, and a friend of mine who is currently in Israel, she's a gay woman, wrote to me that she was very upset when I had wrote that I was anti-Zionist expansionism, because that's how I was looking at myself, anti-Zionist expansionism. And she wrote down that she was a pro-Palestinian Zionist. So do we have a group that considers themselves pro-Palestinian Zionists, and how do they fit into the picture, and how do you see that fitting into the picture?
So that was kind of what I was referencing a moment ago about progressive Zionists and liberal Zionists. So yes, there are plenty of Jews and other people, I imagine, but are limited to Jews for right now, who say that they are pro-Palestinian Zionists. So what that means, in my understanding, that not being me, so what that means is that they believe in the human rights for Palestinians. They certainly believe Palestinians have a right to exist. Some might even believe in the right of return. And they believe that Jews have a right to an ethno-Jewish state. And that state can be somehow democratic, even as it's ethno-Jewish, ethno-nationalist Jewish state. So I think that's that's the question, right? How do you, that's what's the horrible thing that keeps coming to my mind. How do you know what I'm thinking, the metaphor I'm thinking of, it's like horrific. How do you navigate that? Thank you. How do you navigate those waters? I struggled with that, and I can't navigate those waters. And I've had conversations with others who can. And I think a couple of things. One of which is I really want to have compassion for where people are at on their journey. Becoming an anti-Zionist Jew is not easy, particularly if you're in leadership, but either way, it's not easy. And it's not easy partly because of our own stories and traumas. I certainly grew up believing that Israel was a land without a people for people without a land, and Arabs didn't value life as much as Jews. And in my 20s, fortunately, I was able to unpack that story and those lies. And thank God I was. And I think about what allowed a friend and I talk about this a lot, like what is it that allows us to have the worldview and perspective we have and doesn't allow these other people that we think of as being really smart and really nuanced in other areas? Like, why can't they do it here? And all I know is that when I did that journey, I was already on a journey, I was already involved in justice movements and liberation ideology, not really struggles. That was in my 20s. In the 80s, there wasn't a lot going on. And there's a couple things I had. Even though my parents and I didn't agree, I knew I had their unconditional love no matter what. So we don't talk about any of this. Like, they would never listen to this, ever. And they're not like, I mean, I was never sent to Israel as a kid. They're not like extreme Zionists, but their trauma is just like, we need a place to live. I would say that's we just need a place to know that we can go. And there's no point engaging in the conversation. They're in their upper 80s, there's no point. It doesn't matter. But nonetheless, I knew I had their unconditional love. I also have always been very inquisitive and willing to question the stories I've been told by people in power. But that's a gift. Like, that just was something I was. Part of that's probably being Jewish. Part of that's being raised by a father who was a lawyer. And part of that's just my soul. And so I had what I like to call a safety net. I had a place that I knew I could land and be okay, even as I changed my worldview. Because changing my worldview meant, wait a minute, all those things I was told were lies. And I said to my mother not that many years ago, and I'm glad this isn't being recorded so she can't hear me say this, Mom, you taught me to hate. And she said, no, I didn't. I said, yes, the story that Arabs don't value life as much as Jews is teaching me to hate. And that wasn't what my mom wanted to do. She's not a bad person. She just doesn't think in the world this way. She wasn't educated this way. And so I and I say that to say, like, all of us who've become anti-Zionists, unless you were raised in a home that was anti-Zionist, has been on a journey to get there. And I want to like have a safe landing space as people are exploring that place. I don't believe that people transform their ideologies and their worldviews out of shame or fear. That's not how we're going to get where we want to go in this world. We're going to get there because we're going to say, I get you're struggling right now, and I care about your struggle. Are you opening to listening why I don't agree with you? And continually returning to, I hear you're in pain. I understand you're afraid. And so at a march right after October 7th, I was at a Palestinian-led march in San Francisco with a couple other friends. And I was wearing my kippah and my talit. And they were chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And for a moment, my whole body was like, oh my God! And I got scared. That's not my intellect. That phrase doesn't scare me. but my whole body, literally, just went into like, oh my God. And I grabbed my friend and I was like, I need a moment. I'm having a reaction. Like my epigenetic stuff is getting completely riled right now. And I was able to calm myself down. But that's happening all the time. And most of us aren't like, oh, wait a minute. That's my trauma speaking. I have to take this moment and talk to a friend or, you know, call a lifeline, so to speak. And so I want to, that's not happening for most of us. Most of us are being traumatized. They're doing it intentionally over and over and over again. And we're not taking a moment to say, what does that really mean? And am I actually in danger when someone says that? Or am I just extremely uncomfortable? And how do I learn to comfort myself in the face of discomfort? How do I stretch that muscle? That is a really important muscle for us to stretch. Because otherwise we're going to end up getting whipped up into other people's agendas, and it's never going to be in service of liberation for Jews, Palestinians, or anyone else. That was a long one. So I see there, here, and no, the man in the mask. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm tracking. Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi. I commend you for your courage. Obviously, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I had surgery, so that's on my minutes. During your presentation, which lasted close to 1 hour, with your passion, there was one thing that was totally omitted, and I'm curious why. Or more than one thing. Number one is what happened on October 7th, and number two is the situation of the hostages, which in essence is the root cause of what's happening today in Gaza. Is there a reason why you sidestepped that particular topic?
My conversation was about anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and the conflation of the two. So October 7th doesn't have anything to do with that. And if I talk about October 7th, then I have to talk about October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, back to 1948. And that wasn't what I was asked to speak about. So, and I just did say that I condone what happened on October 7th. Now the question about the hostages, I don't condone, thank you. I do that all the time.
Did not condone.
No, October 7th, I condemn, correct. Thank you, sorry. Those two words for me in my dyslexic brain get very confused. So, yes, I condemn what happened on October 7th. Thank you for correcting me. In terms of the hostages, again, if I start to talk about Israeli hostages, then I have to talk about the thousands of Palestinian hostages, and that's not what I was asked to speak about. And no civilian should be held anywhere. And it's horrific. It's all horrific. I cried for all the parents of the hostages, all the children of the hostages, all the loved ones and friends of the hostages, whether they're Palestinian hostages or Israeli hostages. And I don't actually want to get in debate about why this war is continuing, and if only they released the hostages, then it would end, because I think we have an abundance of information and evidence to prove that that's not true, but I'm not going to debate that right now. Thank you. Yes, here.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much for very important distinguishing anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. So I do a lot of interfaith work, and after October 7th we stopped because all of the people who were with us were Zionists, Jewish Zionists, so we couldn't continue because they wouldn't even say ceasefire. So for me it's not only that, it's also like I feel like the Jewish community has to have some safe space, because I have some friends who are Jewish who became anti-Zionist, and it's very hard for them from like the family. It's so hard for them to go to the holidays or any kind of like social with their even parents. Even parents like have like said to them like really very hard things. So I feel like they have to have like some kind of safe space. I know there's like a lot of anti-Zionist like organization, but there is no synagogues which I know of that it is, that's in Newman. Because I was looking for that to have in our interfaith circles. We have like 6 interfaith circles, but we have now no Jews in them. We have only Muslims and Christians. So that would be nice. We will be talking. But I thought, okay, then I'll tell my friends too, because they want it. Some want to be secular and they don't want to go to synagogues. But some, I think, also it will give you the power. Like all of these Jewish organizations, they are very powerful. They are all Zionists. So if you have like you start like having more organization, anti-Zionist organization, it will get us all liberated. Thank you.
Maybe so. Yeah, so again, it's Beit Tikkun, B-E-Y-T-T-I-K-K-U-N. I have high holiday services. Last year, just to give you a feel for it, last year as I was preparing for high holiday services, I thought to myself, what am I going to do next year when this is still going on? And here we are, and I'm just like, damn, I was right. Not a good thing. But we had an altar, and we had Palestinian poems written down, like printed out, and I invited people during the service at any time to come up, interrupt me, and read a poem. So literally people would come up to me as I'm doing something in the middle of the service, and they'd take the mic and they would read a poem. You remember, Cecilia?
Yes.
It was so powerful. So, yeah. So you can reach out to me, Rabbi Cat at Beit Tikkun.
Thank you so much, Cat, Rabbi Cat, for your brilliance and your clarity with these very, very hard issues. I would just like to ask everyone in this room, if you would like to, I would like to invite you to our high holiday services at Beit Tikkun. And I know it's much easier to attend our services here because we can walk there. But I'll tell you, Beit Tikkun is actually very close. It's on this side. We meet at a very close location at Montclair in Oakland.
It will be in downtown Oakland this year.
In downtown Oakland. So I have a car with 4 spaces if anyone wants to connect with me. But the services are like no other services, no other Jewish services that I've ever attended. And many, many issues come up, and we still have the traditional, it's still traditional, and lots of singing, and it's beautiful. So I'd like to invite you as a member.
And if driving is really hard, in addition to Cecilia's space, we actually do hybrid services, so you can join us online. You can get people together in your home and join that way as well. So beittikkun.org.
I'm the other rabbi in the room.
I was not going to out you.
That's okay. No, I out myself all the time. I was a prison chaplain for 20 years. And elected president of the Civil Service Chaplains of California. Inmates who were Jewish were advised, don't put down that you're Jewish. List your identity as other, because it was considered safer. And when any Jew was killed, it was labeled inmate suicide. And I have letters that prove that it was not an inmate suicide. Okay? But those investigations only went so far. So I know what it is to be told, don't use the term rabbi, just tell them you're a chaplain. Okay? I work at a Catholic hospital. There aren't too many rabbis there. Some of the nurses think it's my first name. Okay? All right. The worst day I had when I wore a hat that said Jerusalem. In the circle, just had for Jerusalem. In those days, we used to have a daily reflection that went over the PA system. And I quoted from Proverbs, I was young, I was old, and I never saw a a righteous man or his children going hungry. You wouldn't believe the reaction. And I said, you don't know what it means. It means you have to act. That if you see it, you do something about it. They didn't want to hear that. Okay. Luckily, Catholics actually were very good to me. And I tell them, they don't know how Jewish they really are. But thank you for your courage today.
Yeah. The second.
Yeah.
The order.
Can I just add, Rabbi Cat, that in Jewish Currents, I think yesterday or today, there's an article by a woman whose last name is Zimmerman, and it's about 84 rabbis who have signed on to oppose the war in the last 2 weeks.
Right, yeah.
And so it goes to the question of what do we do with progressive
Watching
Jews.
children starve to death is
Yeah.
apparently the...
Yeah.
I got a question. Do you believe in a Jewish state?
Good question.
No, I don't believe in ethno-nationalism. I don't believe in nation states, to be honest. Like, I think there should be no borders. So, but do I believe...
Do you believe that Jews would be okay to live in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia at this time? Do you believe that Jews...
Great question. Got it. I am not sure why that, whether Jews can live there or not, doesn't mean that Jews should have a Jewish nation state. Jews can live in many places in the world and be safe. So we don't agree. Can we agree that we don't agree? I don't believe that what makes Jews safe is to have a Jewish nation state that oppresses and commits genocide against another people. So do I think that Jews deserve to be able to be safe in this world? If that's the question you're asking me, yes. Do I believe that the only strategy to achieve Jewish safety in the world is a Jewish nation state? No. So that's the distinction I'm drawing. Okay, so we don't agree. I'm going to go to the other person who hasn't asked a question. So that's the beauty of the Jewish world. We don't agree. We can go to the Talmud and find a zillion debates.
You spoke about your parents, and my parents also chose not to be here to listen to this today. So my question is, you also talk about compassion. How do we find compassion for people who are often extremely close to us, perhaps the closest in the world, who either support the genocide or choose to think it's not a genocide despite the obvious evidence?
Thank you. That's a really important question. So for me, the first step in compassion for others is to stop and have compassion with myself, because it's easy to other people who think that way, right? It's easy to actually other them, right? And I don't want to be in the business of othering. I want to be in the business of being okay with disagreeing, but I don't want to be in the business of othering. So first I need to just go to my grief and sorrow and sadness about the fact that these people that I'm really, really close with just don't agree with me, don't see it the way I'm seeing it. And that's a journey, right? Like that in and of itself is a journey. And then I hold them with compassion because I wasn't always where I am today. I wasn't always where I am today on any of these issues. And evolution and transformation happens, so I'm going to get a little rabbi-ish on you here for a moment. So my understanding, or my understanding of what God is, one understanding, I will say, of what God is in this universe, is the force of transformation that makes possible the transformation from that which is to that which can and ought to be. And that derives out of the letters Yud, He, Vav, He. If you're familiar at all with Hebrew, He, Vav, He is the present tense of to be. The Yud is the future tense in the masculine. We'll put that aside for a moment. I won't do a feminist drash on that. That's the future tense, and it literally means, like, it includes both the present tense and the future tense in it, those four letters. So it's the energy or force in the universe that makes transformation from that which is here and now to that which can and ought to be. That transformative energy exists in the whole universe. It exists within each of us. And as we together move energy toward what it can and ought to be, more people move with us toward that energy. When we move toward energy of stuckness and fear, more people move toward that energy. So if I believe that transformation is inherent within all of us, and I know that I have transformed, then I have to hold compassion for where people are at. Even as I struggle with it, even as I may choose to engage or not engage with them, but to hold compassion. And as I said, my parents are in their upper 80s, which is, I can't even believe it. But they grew up in a different time, right? They grew up in a different time, in a different place. Their nervous system operates very different from mine. And I'm grateful that whatever I received from them allows me to be this, right? Allows me to have this courage, allows me to speak my truth, allows me to transform to believe things I didn't believe before, or to see things I was not able or willing to see before. And then I don't say anything to them.
Well, that's honest.
I prefer not to. They're not gonna change their mind, so. I already got my dad to at least not be completely sexist, so that was a great. You already said I'm not, you got me to move on feminism. I'm like, okay, I'll take that as my win. Bless his heart. And I love my parents dearly. I mean, I say this and I love them dearly. But yeah, we don't agree. So I want to honor you for like the pain and sorrow that I imagine you feel in your heart from that distance. And just invite you into your own grief. You know, high holidays, whether you go to services or practice or not, it's a wonderful time for that. It's a wonderful time for you to find that grief and be present with it. That's all we can do sometimes. Thank you. I don't know where we're at in time. I just wanted to check. Okay, great. We can go further? Okay, cool.
Two quick things. One was, my understanding is that the land in Israel is defined as not owned by individuals, but owned by all the Jews in the world, that that's sort of the way it's constructed legally. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to me that makes me wonder if, you know, if everything that Israel does is done in the name, including, you know, taking people's land, is done in the name of all Jews, whether that doesn't endanger all Jews just because of the way that's defined. The other thing I was wondering is if, I mean, I've been listening to some speakers talking about cults, and of course we know about sort of this MAGA cult idea, and most of us have had experience with cults of different kinds, and some of them are religious and some of them are more secular. But I wonder if you see sort of the current situation with people who are really invested in this idea of like of Israel in a sort of cultish way, or whether you see it in a different way.
So I'm going to try to track the questions. So the first one was,
About the land.
thank you. I actually don't know the answer to that question about whether I mean, Israel's a capitalist nation state. The Jewish National Fund owns and has stolen a lot of the land. And any Jew has a right to move back, excuse my language there. See? There it is, right? Like, there it is. There's my history. You got it right there, right? What the heck am I talking about there? That was so good, I caught myself. Any Jew in the world has a right to move to Israel. You don't have to think you're being persecuted where you are, you don't have to be afraid for your safety. That's a different question to me. But you don't have to do that. You can just pick up and move because you want to live there. I don't know if you've heard this, but Israel, this might seem like a side, but it's not totally. Israel doesn't have enough people who are able and willing to serve in the military, and they've made this huge call up, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to Jews around the world to recruit them. Yeah, around the world. So, so any Jew anywhere in the world has a right to return, to go to. God, that's so interesting. That's so fascinating. That's like my genetic stuff coming out there, right? Like, have the right to move to Israel as if they're returning to go live there. And I think I said earlier in my talk that anytime the nation state of Israel does something and claims it's doing it in the name of Jews, and it's genocide, ethnic cleansing, stealing land, etc., I think that's bad for Jews. But more importantly, it's really bad for Palestinians. The second question had to do with if I think it's a cult. I haven't really studied cults enough to make that assessment or not. I think there have been writings about that. I'm less interested in defining it than I am in trying to figure out how to unravel it. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to see if anyone who hasn't asked a question. Oh, is that what you were telling me?
Let me just interrupt. So it's 5:30. This is when we normally stop, but we're going to go another 10 or 15 minutes. But if you do need to leave, now would be a good time if you're not going to stay another 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. I'm heading up the Interfaith Council here at Rossmoor, and I have my question, which is, how do you bring Jews and Christians and Muslims and Buddhists together in the face of all that you've said today? And it's such a welcome to hear what you're saying, and it's so welcome to me, but how do you do it?
Yeah, I feel for you. I'm involved in interfaith groups, and I feel very honored to be in those groups, and actually love being in those groups. I find it, and I will also say I have not once experienced anti-Semitism in those groups, not once. And we've been doing a lot of solidarity work around Palestine, and not once have I experienced anti-Semitism in those groups. So I think you have to be really mindful and choiceful about what is the purpose of the group, what are some of the agreements that you can agree to, and what are the things you're not going to agree to. If you bring in a Zionist, you're going to have to be very cagey about what you're going to agree to, what people will agree to being said and what they won't agree to being said, and then you're going to have to decide as a group, are we okay with that or not? And that's where then you get into the issue of, oh, you're excluding Zionists, right? But to me, it's a question of what are the principles of the group that the group can agree to? And if the principles are, we're going to stand in solidarity with Palestinians, we're going to call this a genocide and ethnic cleansing, which it is, and then you're debating whether you have to not do that to include Jewish faith leaders, and then you might get accused of not allowing Zionists in. And I think it calls for a moment of clarity, right? Like, I wouldn't have a problem. I think it depends on how it's framed. So when I hear like Zionists were excluded, I do sometimes get my little hackles up. But I think if you say, these people are excluded because we can't agree on some fundamental principles that are the very foundation of what our group is, and they can't agree to it. And if they don't agree to it, then they don't have to be part of our group, that's fine. And we can work on immigration together perhaps, or we can work on other issues together. But if we believe in liberation struggle and anti-racism, then we have to support Palestinian liberation. I mean, that's where I stand. So I could join your interfaith group, but I'm not in Walnut Creek. But
You can still come.
but so I think so I think you have, you know, if you're the one defining it, you know, it depends where the power lies, right? Where does the power lie? Where does the decision making? Yeah. So once you define it, then you can invite people in or out, in or not, and they'll make their choices. And I think, and then that just becomes a clear opportunity for you to be clear about what it is that you stand for, and that means some people won't stand with you, and that's okay.
Can I just say one last thing? So that also equates to evangelicals. Right.
You know, our standards are that we are open to hear everyone without kicking them out. You know, but we're willing to listen, you know, with an open heart, and we're willing and wanting to listen so that we learn. Yeah, but many evangelicals think they have the word, the word.
Right. Let me say one thing.
So I want to be clear about one thing. There are, did I write this down? Oh, I deleted it. There are, I had it in there to get up, 30 million Christian Zionists in the United States. That's 4 times as many Jews than there are in the United States. There are 10 million Christian Zionist members of Christian United for Israel. That's more than twice as many Jews. So let's just be clear about where, this is like what I was saying before. The white nationalists, the white Christian nationalists, and the evangelicals are not in this because they care about Jews. They want us all to go to Israel so that the Messiah will come and then, you know, we'll all either convert or be killed.
Right.
So let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I had to go on a journey like you did. Mine was because I was raised as a Baptist, a conservative Baptist, and my family, half my family are still in that mindset, and it's prophesied in the Bible, so therefore it's okay. And they don't think there's anything wrong with what's happening because that's what God intended.
Yeah, so life's a journey, as they say. Yeah, I'm going to come to you, and then you have your hand up again.
Falling down on my job.
That's your responsibility. It's a good, gets me to walk around.
Is it on? Thanks very much for your talk. I thought it was terrific. There's one thing I wanted to ask about. Back towards maybe 10 or 12 minutes into your talk, soon after you had mentioned Project Esther, I think you kind of enumerated a list of points that sounded like it was a strategy, you know, point by point, an agenda for how to propel the pro-Israel viewpoint in the United States. Things like smear the professors and you know, crush dissent on campus. Okay, where did that come from? Was that part of the written agenda by that think tank that created Project Esther, or was it someone's summary of that?
So, I pulled that from JVP's website, but they went to Project Esther, Jewish Voice for Peace, excuse me. And so you can go to their website and find that, but they pulled it from Project Esther.
So it's a summary.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to thank you very much for being here, first of all, and I'm really happy to be in Rossmoor where we can come together like this. It's really important. Many of us grew up in ghettoized neighborhoods, and that is why our parents sometimes are the way they are. I realized that I had grown up in a Jewish neighborhood in Philadelphia, and that's all that I knew. And that shapes your being, that shapes your life for quite a bit. And some of us have been fortunate to escape it, and many people still are living in their ghettoized neighborhoods, especially in the East Coast. They still live there, so they form these opinions. And for me, I think this was the basis of Zionism for me. Happened in that Jewish neighborhood. That was where we collected money for trees for Israel. That's where we had our tzedakah boxes. That's where we saw a Hebrew teacher, maybe with a tattoo on her because she came from a concentration camp, or my shamas. So these were things that shaped Zionism. And you use the word transformation, and that's where the important thing is. How do we transform ourselves? How do we take a look at ourselves? We may not be able to convince our older parents, but I do have hope in the world. I really do. I do have hope in the world that if that bill, AB 715, is defeated, then you can truly have transformation. If you don't, you're stuck in the rut.
Good. So, okay, so I just want to, first of all, thank you all for having me and for asking such good questions and challenging questions. I welcome them all. And for being so present and real. And I just want to bless us all. In the Jewish world, we're coming up to the Jewish New Year. It's been a rough year. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I'm alive in this moment. At times I think to myself, who would I have been if I was alive during slavery or not alive? And I'm like, oh, this is who I would have been. Good to know. It's been a year, you know, both in Palestine and here in the United States. And I do believe in the possibility of transformation. I wholeheartedly believe in it. We see it all over the place. We know it happens. How many decades ago you wouldn't have a woman rabbi standing in front of your eyes? And the reason it happened is because women dared, and sometimes with male allies, dared to stand up in congregations and say, why aren't women allowed to speak from the bima? Why aren't queer people allowed to speak from the bima? Why can't we be rabbis? And I stand on their legacy. Why can't Jewish spaces be places where we tell the truth about our history and still love our tradition, and yet criticize what's being done in our name? And so I bless us that we can transform ourselves, tikkun ha'nefesh, heal our hearts, heal our souls, and also transform our world, tikkun ha'olam, and co-create together a world that is truly liberated for all people. Because really we won't be free unless everyone's free. There is no freedom in oppression for anyone. So whether you join us for high holidays or not, I hope you will consider doing so. I wish you a meaningful holiday season of self-reflection, of teshuvah, returning, repair, and repentance, and of wild transformations for the good of all, for the planet, and for all beings on this planet that we can't even begin to think about, given where we're at today. And maybe next year we'll come back and we'll see the transformations happen. Thank you all so much.